and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. 1901, everybody rise to the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Any changes or additions to the agenda? Okay, so let's go on to the consent agenda. Would consider a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moving second. Any discussion on the consent agenda? I was a little surprised to see that we need a new secretary at CC already.
Well, that was a very quick turnover.
Yeah.
I think there were 2 days, 3 days, I'm not sure, but yes. So that job is posted.
I don't know. Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, then all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please.
Aye.
All right, consent agenda is passed. Let's talk to Krista.
All right.
You're on, Krista.
Yep. You should be on that.
Hello, nice to see all of you guys tonight. It's been a while. We've had a lot going on in ASB in the last, well, I've been following this the last couple years, but there was a new House bill that took effect on June 11th, so of last year, and it was just something that we thought it was important enough that we wanted to share it with you guys, because it creates a lot of changes for the way our ASB operates from grades K through 12, all grades. So here we go. And can you see that okay?
We've got it.
Yep, there it is. There you
All
go.
right. Okay, so it's called House Bill 1660. And like I said, this took effect June 11th. And we haven't really had to deal with it only because obviously the pandemic hit and we haven't had any kids in the building. So it's kind of bought us a little bit of time, but what House Bill 1660 does for us and our kids in our schools, it puts new requirements into place. And one of them is fee waivers for grades K through 12 for free or reduced qualified students for all ASB activities. It removes any obstacles for extracurricular optional activities, and reduce admission prices for the students' family members and those 65 and older with difficulties paying. It requires data collection at grades 9 through 12, publishing and reporting requirements. It requires a calculation of opportunity gaps and an annual opportunity gap reduction plan, again, grades 9 through 12 only. Now, the entire bill applies to K through 12. It's just the reporting that applies to grades 9 through 12.
So, Chris, can you maybe tell me, I can think of some obstacles that might be there and might be very expensive for our school district. So what kind of obstacles are you, I mean, we've got transportation, which we've cut out in the past, right? Because it wasn't in our budget.
Yeah.
So, and are those obstacles even for elementary club programs? Would we need to provide transportation for those?
So I don't know that it's so much surrounding the transportation unless it's an optional, you know, a lot of our sports events, the district provides funding for through the levy. It would be the extra trips that they would take that are above and beyond what they would normally do.
So no club.
It could include transportation as well. More especially for band trips, dance trips, those sorts of things. You'll as you get further into this, you'll realize this is a big deal.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yes, it is a very big deal. So So what do we know? So obviously the goal in this is to provide more opportunities for our students. So what do we know about our data so far? We know that Eatonville High School in 2019 had a 28% free and reduced rate. That went up this year for 2020 for the month of October to 33%. Now that's quite a big jump. But we believe that's primarily due to not running the 30-day utility. So normally what happens is when we return to school, students submit their applications and there's that grace period from the application, from their qualifying the previous year. So they have that grace period, but then we run a 30-day utility in which all of the students revert back to paid status unless they put in a new application. This year, the state told us not to run the utility, so everybody kept the same status as they had last year, which means we probably added, that's where that number boosted this year, was the additional applications on top of who already qualified last year. We know that last year, 23% of students who participated in a sport were free and reduced qualified. So we've got quite a high percentage rate of participation for free and reduced already. So obviously we've got some things in place that we're helping students. And those kinds of things are the Class of 53 fund. They donate periodically through the year, every year, and to our students for extra things that they can't afford. The Invest Ed Fund used to be called the Sal Haas Fund. You might be familiar with that.
Mhm.
We use that to help students with sports fees, ASB cards, prom tickets, anything that they might need help with. And then last year we put in for a reduced ASB card fee, so they only paid 30 instead of 50. So most of these funds have reached students from staff referrals, mostly secretaries and other staff. We've had some parent and student requests. And like I said, it's covered these private funds that we've had for several years, quite a few years now, have been covering these things for students. But it's been primarily upon staff referrals and requests only.
So Krista, I do have a question about the data.
Yes.
So are they basing the data based on last year's data, or is it going to be the 2020-2021 school year?
So the data for the qualified data?
Correct.
So yeah, so the 1920, because the data is pulled on the last school day in October. So the 2019-2020 data is the 28%, and then the 2021 school year is the 33%.
And which month is that? Is that October or because that?
Yeah, it would be the last count day in October, the last school day in October.
And then is that percentage a family percentage, or is it through students, a unique students for that's counted?
Yeah, so when a student qualifies, it qualifies their entire family.
That's what okay.
Yes.
So that 23% is, it could be a family percentage.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
Thank
but again, you're welcome. So what was, the legislature, when they put this through, they obviously had an intent in mind, and they know that it's important for students to be involved in these activities. So these are just some of the high points that they outlined in the bill and what their intent of the bill was. They obviously have some data and evidence that higher participation makes for better grades, better test scores, better attendance, just better all around health and wellness. and just an all around better educational experience. So, you know, they also wanted to address the barriers and reduce these opportunity gaps to low income students across the state in all ASBs. So what's in it for the student? Because obviously that's what this bill is centered around, is what's in it for the student to get them to participate and get higher participation rates. So basically, anything that is an obstacle to participation must be removed. It has to be a zero charge. So an ASB card is required to play sports and required to be in certain clubs, required to get into games. That's free now to those kids who qualify. Sports fees, we're charging $35 per sport. Per student. I know there is a family maximum. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but those are waived. So zero price for those. So dance admission, dance tickets, any kind of event, it's free to those students who qualify and have a waiver on file or a consent to share form on file. And I'll go over that in just a minute.
Would that include a band trip?
That would include the band trip, and that's been one of the more challenging questions we've had. Yeah.
A lot of money. And did this come with any funding?
They have a little bit of funding available to districts who applied. We applied and we didn't get it. There isn't that much funding available. And the way they had it structured, it was a lot of the districts, the way I calculated it, a lot of the districts were actually getting more than what they truly would have lost. So it was kind of weird the way they calculated that.
Krista, can I ask? So for example, if I was a teacher and I was going to take a group to France, would that also qualify?
It depends if that trip is run through ASB or if that's a trip that you just run on the side. So for example, the Washington, D.C. trip that my son went on a couple years ago, that wasn't run through the school. It wasn't run through ASB. It was a private trip. So that is not, that would not be included in this House bill.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So uniforms, obviously they need uniforms to participate in sports. We cannot charge them for uniforms because it creates a barrier to participation. Any other equipment that's required to participate. So if we're requiring they wear soccer cleats, we cannot charge them for them if they need them. If we say, okay, everybody, you can play in your tennis shoes if you want, we recommend cleats, but you can play in your tennis shoes, then you don't necessarily have to provide that. But anything that is required to participate must be a zero charge. So you mentioned band trip. There's travel costs associated with that. Obviously, dance went to the Holiday Bowl a year or two ago. We cannot charge students who want to go, who are free or reduced qualifying and have a consent to share on file. We cannot charge them for these trips.
Okay, so any club that is registered under ASB, any athletic club, any club.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. This pertains to all ASB activities. All of them.
Where does that leave us?
Of course, any club can also make things outside of ASB as well. I mean, the really expensive things like trips and that.
Yeah, yeah. As long as it doesn't go through the school, then they can do that. So basically, the key word here is participation. So any barriers to participation. So if you go to a football game, you don't have to provide them a hot dog. You don't have to provide them a drink, but you do have to make sure they can get into the football game. So they go on a trip. You do need to make sure that they have transportation. They have hotel. They have those sorts of basic meal needs. But extra items, that's on them. So another really different part about this bill that we're not quite sure how to address, school districts are still trying to wrap their heads around this, is we'll need to provide reduced admission prices for family members of free and reduced students. And also anyone who's 65 years and older who may not be able to afford to get in if they want to attend these events or games, community events that are run by ASB, we need to provide a way of reducing the price for them.
Krista, can I ask a clarifying question? Who's responsible for finding that out? Is it upon request? So a family would request it?
We honestly, we don't know. That's all we would have to go on at this point. Otherwise we wouldn't know. That's a big unanswered question at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a definition of who family is?
I don't believe they designated whether that's an immediate family. I would have to look at that again in the bill, but I don't think there was a designation, a specific definition on that.
And I'm sorry, one more question. Outside of our district, so when our kids go to a playoff game or et cetera, oftentimes we have to pay for that. How do we have to subsidize those other schools? Do they have to allow, how does that, or is that not even taken into consideration? Because those are ASB opportunities. And how do we know who's going to attend? And
Well, at other schools, they'd be under the same law too and have to.
yeah, but they have, we have to pay for our, I would imagine they don't have to pay
Well,
for our students.
There would have to be a pass or something.
There gotta be something. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you provide me an example, Rhonda?
Sure, I'd love to do that. So for instance, my daughters always went to districts, regionals, and state swim meets, swim championships. Anytime it happened outside of our league, we had to pay, even though I had a pass as a school board director, I had to pay separate to that separate league, that separate school who was hosting it. If we are responsible for the free and reduced students as well as their families, how do we mitigate that? How do we track that? Is it a card that we give them and then the school's charged? Is it agreement that we make unilaterally throughout the state that all free and reduced kids are subsidized regardless of what school district? Do we welcome, when visiting people come to our games from other districts, how do we mitigate that? I know, I'm just curious.
And what does reduced mean?
So I think that when we have outside visitors come to our school, we're not responsible for them, is the word that I'm hearing. But as far as us going on trips to league sponsored events, I don't know if that's necessarily, would that necessarily be an ASB sponsored event?
It is sponsored, yes.
If they're ASB sponsors, we have to pay to get in.
Yeah.
Okay. So anything that's ASB sponsored, we have to waive fees for the student and provide a way to discount for the family if they wish to attend. I think that's kind of one of those things that we may want to seek better clarification on.
Well, I think in Rhonda's case specifically, it's not our ASB doing it, so.
Okay. Okay.
Well, not a question,
Yeah.
if there are ASB students and they're going to a function with their ASB student, and are we responsible then for making sure they can get in at a reduced price? That's my question.
Oh, at another location.
That's at another location.
I don't believe so. I think it's just, it would only apply to things that we charge for, because we don't have control over what somebody else charges. It would only be things that we charge for.
Okay.
Is there any, what's reduced? Is it 20%, 50%? It probably doesn't say, would be my guess.
Now, you mean as far as what do you have to make to qualify for a free or reduced?
No, what it says, reduced admission prices for family. How much is reduced?
Yeah, they don't specify that. They leave that up to us to define.
Fabulous.
So Krista, then one district could say, we're going to only reduce it 30%, and another one could say people only have to pay 25%.
Yes.
Or, and that's okay.
Yes. Yes,
We're
that's
gonna
correct.
have people come to our district who are gonna expect a discount that we aren't going to honor.
Yeah, I think it's gonna cost a lot.
It's gonna cost a lot. I don't wanna be, I'm not volunteering for the ticket booth.
Yeah, don't volunteer there.
No.
You know, again, this is one of those bills that they put through, I mean, with good intentions, and we're kind of left to figure out, you know, to put the pieces together. So that's one of those things that we're going to have to figure out along the way. So, and it's getting to that point now, we're going to have to start addressing those things a little bit quicker rather than later. So
I do have a question. Maybe this is for my school board director colleagues and Preston. Do we have a policy and procedure for ASB?
Oh, there's
Yes.
lots of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of them.
So with that said, anything that you are presenting right now, Krista, is it just for us to review and then you guys will apply that to or amend that to the policy and procedure?
So the policy's already been updated and put through, I believe it's several months ago that went through.
That, because I'm looking at, because this was presented in Franklin Pierce School District as well.
Oh, okay.
And there is a portion that says waiver or reduction of fees. Is that what you are presenting tonight?
Yes, so the waiver applies to our students, specifically our students who are free reduced. And let me point out another thing. They have to have an annual consent to share on file signed by the parent or guardian prior to payment. So those are the two things that qualify for the waiver. And
Correct. So will that be then included in the procedure? Anything that you're discussing, that you're presenting right now, will that now be added to the procedure that we currently have?
we
As an
will need,
existing-
I believe we would need to update our procedures, yes.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
will, Lisa. This is implementing new law, so it's certainly gonna have to have some procedure.
Correct. I agree with that, but is Krista presenting this just an FYI, or is there going to be another board meeting that would add these changes that is being presented right now?
This
as
is
part of the policy
introduction,
procedure?
Lisa. This is just introduction. We don't have these policies figured out. We don't even have all these questions answered yet on exactly.
That's
what-
exactly what I'm asking.
Yeah.
All right.
So stand by.
Yes, absolutely stand by.
Kim, I have a question that may be directed at you and any wild guess. But it's up to me. I wouldn't charge any family to watch their students do anything. How much money do we make in gate receipts a year, just roughly?
Thousands. And they use those gate receipts to subsidize all the clubs that don't have income, such as Daffodil. So the gate receipts they use, they farm that out to the different sports teams. To each club, and that's at the middle school and the high school. So if they lose their gate receipt revenue, they basically are losing the revenue to hire speakers to come in for the school assemblies and for the other opportunities. And that's one of those catch-22s when they wrote this law. In trying to reduce the gap, they're essentially reducing opportunities for all students.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is going to hurt.
Are the officials paid for out of the gate fees as well?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Are sporting officials paid for out of gate receipt?
Yes.
So I do want to bring it back up to the 35,000 foot level, however. We're talking about 28%, no, 23% of all, right? We're not talking about all of them. We're talking about that 23% of students that really have that need.
Correct,
So
but
I-
Jeff had asked if we weren't collecting gate receipts at all, so that's why we're just trying to address that.
Yep, absolutely.
Do we have any idea what percentage of our athletes are free and reduced?
Yeah.
20.
Well, that's just it,
It
okay.
goes off of students.
Okay, I thought that was total students, okay.
So it wouldn't necessarily just be athletes.
Yeah, it would be
Well, right.
families, any.
Right, yeah, anybody.
It should be
So,
any
okay.
student who
Okay.
participates.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
we got a lot of questions. Yeah, answer.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are asking lots of questions. I knew you guys would because it's been endless questions for the last several months. So,
Yeah.
one thing that I would like to just re-emphasize is that not all free and reduced kids will get a waiver. They have to, so first you have to qualify, and let me see here. Okay, I didn't put that in there. So you have to be approved, and that legally we have 10 days to approve them for a free or reduced rate. Does it take that long? No. D usually gets it approved within the day. So you've got to have the approval in place, but then you also have to have the parent and guardian sign a consent to share form. Now, this is not easy because it's not just a consent to share with all programs. So it's not just to check one box and sign. You have to select which programs you consent to share your free or reduced status with. So you have ASB, you have preschool, you have other programs that you can share, and by student. So you might share with several programs for your older student, but none for your younger student. So, so those are a couple pieces that's important to remember in order to get that waiver. Those pieces have to be in place prior to payment.
Who's tracking those, Krista? Or who's going to be tracking them? Do you know?
So that, because you'll have families with different age groups, I think it's best that filters through the district office here so that we have a grasp on all of it. And so we'll have a file up here where we keep the ones that are qualified, and then we'll have a file for those who didn't qualify but who have a consent to share, because they may qualify in a month through a direct certification. So to be able to put them, on that zero waiver program right away.
All right.
So what are the challenges right now? So right now with sports starting back up again, obviously we need to implement this change right away. So the biggest challenge is getting the message out there, because it's a new program. A lot of people will not be familiar with it. So we're going to need to get that message out there and make sure they know that these pieces have to be in place before you get that waiver. The meal application needs to happen. That could take a couple days. Parent guardian signature needs to happen. That could take a few months process. And there's the payment process. So typically when a student comes in to pay, they hand the secretary the money and she hands them the receipt. Well, now it's not that easy. The secretary now has to know, is this student free or reduced? And does this student have a consent to share on file? So they need to know both of those things before they know to charge them regular price or $0. So now we're looking at a confidentiality issue. And that's something that we're tackling right now. So there is no easy way to streamline this process. We're working with Skyward to try to streamline it, but they're really not interested in implementing new features of the program, with going to switch over to cumulative soon. So we're doing the best we can with the program we're given. So next, let's see. So what other questions lie ahead for us? So obviously there's a lot of questions left. Sports, what are we requiring our kids to purchase to participate? I asked that question, and cheer cheer pays for their whole entire uniform, their pom-poms, their bags to carry it in. They front the bill for that. Each cheerleader fronts the bill for that. Dance attire, they buy their own clothing. As you know, probably multiple different outfits. They buy that. Swimsuits, I believe Rhonda, you could speak to this. I believe they are paying for their own swimsuits.
Yeah, more expensive too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know my son Dylan had to pay for his soccer socks, soccer cleats, shin guards. He purchased all of those items. But now we can't charge for those if the family has those two things in place.
Krista, can I ask you a question? Just thinking around, one of the things that a lot of the kids have done is they've done their fundraising during football games and that sort of thing. And it was kind of one of those, you're part of the team, you're going to participate in the fundraising, and that's going to go towards your uniform or your pom-poms or whatever. Do we still have the ability to ask those students, even though we're going to subsidize the balance, is that an option for us to ask them, just like the other students to participate in fundraising, or is that in this bill?
Okay, I'm sorry, it cut out in, can you repeat the question?
Rhonda, I think I can address that for you. So we can ask that they participate. Krista and I were discussing this today, but we cannot mandate that they reach a certain fundraising level. They can't have a minimum that they need to raise. But we can ask that they participate in fundraising events.
Okay, thank you.
And also the current board policy procedure, the first thing that it says is that fundraising must be optional for students. We cannot require them to participate in fundraising. So if we were to do that, that would be something that we would need to address and think about the consequences of doing that. Dances and events. So prom, most of them plan ahead, they buy their tickets. But what happens now if you have a student buying a couple's ticket and the other student happens to be a free or reduced with consent on file? How are we going to handle that? Payments at the door, you plan for prom. Now, what about the other dances and events that they pay at the door? More informal dances. They're just gonna, they don't have anything to do, so let's go to the dance tonight and let's just go in and pay and we'll get in. Well, now that creates another challenge because you're gonna have people paying at the door, and some people there's gonna be cash or card exchange, and other students won't pay. So you're creating a situation where they're going to start asking questions. Trips, I think we kind of covered that. The band trips, dance trips, travel costs, that's going to be a sticky one. I think a lot of districts they're already talking about canceling those because it's just such a big task. So,
yeah, that's the thing.
The intent's great, but
All kids are all students are gonna suffer.
So, once again, a great idea is really gonna bust the small districts right in the teeth.
Yeah. So, and also you've got other sports uniforms, I don't know what these kids are buying. I guess that's kind of up to the school to decide, but we're going to have to look at how we're doing that. Are we inventorying items and issuing them? There's a lot of questions around sports. So as far as the revenue goes, we will lose revenue. Like Kim said, we have the gate receipts. That's a big one. ASB cards, that's another big one. User fees, $35. That's another big one. Club fees. And yes, that funding that we receive gets transferred into the other groups. So ASB gets together and they decide, okay, we're going to give this much money to Daffodil. We're going to allocate this much money to speakers and assemblies. We're going to allocate this much to letters and awards. We're going to allocate this much to Hall of Fame, security, sports officials, those sorts of things. So it's definitely going to take some tighter budgeting, I guess you would say. So I'm going to leave the slide up, that's up here right now, but if you have any more questions, I would be happy to answer them.
I think at this point, if we think of anything else, we'll just email them to you because we're clearly not going to get any answers.
Yeah.
You have got a ton of work ahead of you.
We do. And I think at this point, you know, OSPI has put out their questions and answers on their website. So you can always go there and go to OSPI, type in House Bill 1660, frequently asked questions. They do answer a lot of questions that on there. But then now the next step, I think, is going to be address it at the building level. And how are we going to remove these barriers without tanking ASB?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think I'm all about removing barriers for kids. I think that's super important. But what I don't want to do is remove complete opportunities for those students and every other student.
Yeah.
So trying to bring that balance, I think is going to be really, that's the real question. And I sat through, I don't know how many times I went and I testified on this and listened. And we brought all of these concerns forward and they meant nothing, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, lots of questions, so.
Okay, well, thank you, Krista.
Okay.
Awful
You're
lot
very
done and a lot more to do, so.
Yeah, certainly. Well, thank you very much for having me. And again, it was really nice seeing you all.
Yes, I'm sure you have a critical ask about this. Thank you, Krista.
Thank you.
Okay, Kim, on to the budget report. Give us all the good news.
Well, with your permission, I'm actually gonna do enrollment first.
Great.
It's just because it's I don't know if it's a nice segue, but it does segue into the budget. So December enrollment, as did January. Our biggest losses for the year continue to be in 6th grade, which is down 22 FTE from the beginning of the school year. And honestly, we have no clear answers as to why that particular grade level. We also saw some pretty significant drops in 2nd grade. So it's not as if it was just restricted to middle school. The bright spot in enrollment, conversely, is also at the middle school. Middle school CTE is up for the year. It's been holding steady at 28 FTE, and it has reached the point where it's self-sustaining, which is a huge milestone. So something to be pleased about in the enrollment report. Just moving on to the financial piece. Our food service, I do want to point out there was one small error in the report, that the printed report you received said OSPI was not contributing to the meals. They are, but it is pretty insignificant. So, you know, we've served 54,000 meals from guy is $3,500, or essentially 6 cents a meal that we receive back. So there is a definite loss of income and revenue in food service, but Terry and her staff have done a tremendous job of really using supplies at hand in order to keep those expenditures down. So all things considered, they've done as best as we could hope. If I could draw your attention to the fund balance projections, this is where we really move from enrollment right into our budget situation. You can tell there are 3 scenarios laid out there. The pink line is if we had enrollment and transportation harmless passed through the legislature, and additionally that they would hold our LEA where we had budgeted. And so that really is, it's a dream scenario. It's pie in the sky. The blue line is if the legislature were to enact some hold harmless in transportation. And then our green line is our current reality, what we're looking at with our decreased enrollment and pre any legislative action. At this point, it looks like we will probably end the year somewhere between the blue and the green lines. SB 5128 is the 12 that's currently being discussed. That would provide a 70% hold harmless to districts. But it does stipulate that that money can be spent either on the original transportation expenditures or to use buses to deliver meals or learning resources to our students. In our case, we have not used our buses to deliver meals. And if you look back at the food service piece, really, we have managed to capture our free and reduced meals where we have lost the meal service as our paid students. And the staff has done a tremendous job of making sure that our students who need those meals, that we have reached them. And so we haven't had to use our transportation for that. So under the current bill, what that means is if they were to give us the 70% hold harmless and we didn't use all of it, we actually have to give it back. So it's not as if they're just granting it to us to be able to hold steady. In our situation, because we're always underfunded, I believe that just with the salaries we have in place, there would be no recovery for our specific district. But it is troublesome that we can't possibly be the only district out there not using our buses for those, and that essentially they have to manufacture work in order to be able to maintain the extra hold harmless funding that would come through from the state. At the same time, there is a House Bill 1368, which pertains to the ESSER II funds. Districts had asked for the immediate release of all of that funding. 1368 actually provides our school district would receive approximately $500,000 for that allocation. So our current apportionment in January is down over $1 million because of enrollment decrease. So this would be $500,000. There are significant reporting requirements attached to this bill, including a June deadline for districts to identify specific diagnostic tools by grade level of student learning and achievement gaps and how to focus additional support. That timeline, I don't understand how that is possibly manageable. Barely begun to get back in school, and we're ahead of most districts. So for those that don't get students back until March or April, they're going to have 2 weeks basically to assess where their students are and to try and come up with a plan that they submit to OSPI for dealing with that. And I don't think that they can expect the best outcome rather than giving them time to have a really thoughtful process as to how to best allocate those resources. There's also, at least in my mind, some considerable concern about the whole supplement versus supplant debate in terms of using the federal ESSER funds to backfill our budgets. And just to give an example, when I pay my mortgage, if my parents wanted to give me some funding to pay it down faster, they're supplementing the payment that I'm making. If I lose my job and my parents give me my mortgage payment, they are supplanting the money that I would be spending. There are very specific laws against supplanting with federal funds. So in this case, what they have proposed is that they not give us the state funding and we use the federal funding instead. Because they are allocating everything via Title I, which specifically prohibits supplanting, I believe that they're in direct conflict of that law and regulation. And I'm not sure how they are going to get around that, to be honest. So what that means is if we used our ESSER funds to backfill our enrollment revenue, which they've said we can do, during an audit, they're going to say, well, you supplanted your state funding for those teachers with the federal fund. So there's the potential for funds back from us if we were to use them unwisely. So I'm just really in a quandary as to how that's all going to play out.
All right.
And on that happy note, I'm done.
Oh, no. Sometimes I just can't keep my mouth shut. Paulette's working on my inside voice. It's a lot better. And sometimes I just have to say something because this is all so freaking infuriating.
It is.
So, sorry.
They're just plain.
Please
Plain.
continue if you were going to, Kim.
No, actually, that really was all I had left to touch
Okay.
on, and unfortunately, it was not a high note.
I'll get a thicker mask next time. Right on. Okay, thank you, Kim, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so we're on to the whole child for the proclamation.
Yes, so the whole child proclamation, you see it in, this is the whole child month for the state of Washington. And it's encouraged by our governor. And so you can see the proclamation talking about children, social, emotional, and well-being of children. I think it's an ironic conversation to have for this month.
Yeah,
It's a good conversation to have, but I mean, even the beginning states, each child deserves to be challenged academically, exposed to a comprehensive education that promotes critical thinking and creativity, and prepared for higher education, meaningful employment, and lifelong success. Schools matter, and the work that we have been involved in reopening schools during the pandemic has been yeoman's work. So I don't know, do you need to make a, I don't know that we need to.
no, we've never done
No.
anything like that before.
But I don't think there's been any time in the history, at least in my history, that the whole child, the entire child, is more important.
Right.
So,
Concur.
okay. And if you don't mind, I will go forward as well as our appreciating our board. I don't think that school board, I know you didn't sign up for a pandemic. And I know that you didn't sign up to have masks on, and I just appreciate so much. You are building the future of public education hand in hand with the educators in Eatonville and for the children. So I want to thank all of you for your service. I want to thank all of you for your hearts and minds, and you always make the right decision for kids. So I want to thank you. There is a lovely certificate, and typically we would get together and take a photo, but what I will do at the end, and Lisa, yours will be a little bit more challenging, so maybe we'll send it to you and then you can send a picture back. Okay.
That's fine.
All right, and thank you so much. We'll get you
All
at
right.
the end. All right.
Thank you. So we'll move on to considering approval of the revised contract for online IEP services. And this is just some run-of-the-mill, welcome to the world.
Well, I might
Changes, it
suggest
looks
that
like.
you combine A and B.
Sure.
They're both
Yeah.
yearly, annual services.
Good stuff. So, okay, so I would consider a motion to approve 7A and B together as presented.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? All right, seeing and hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed, please say no. Okay, approved. So we'll now consider approval of WASA policy changes. So I'll just start considering a motion to approve WASA policy changes as presented. Okay, let's talk about it.
So are we gonna do like 1 through 9 or all of them? Or, I mean, what do you want the motion to be? So we can have a discussion.
Yeah, that's all I was
Okay,
going
all right,
for,
All
yeah.
right, so, I move that we consider all of the, WASDA policies.
So move.
Second?
Okay, moving seconded.
Excellent.
Now let's discuss
Okay,
the WASA policies. Let's start at the top, English language. We have,
and I think these are all the same.
Yes.
All the way
yeah,
down to
I
the
just
data
have
sharing?
the
Yes,
same
yeah,
thing.
they absolutely are. So I sit on the mastery-based work group for the state of Washington. And this is, comes out of that. So these recommendations are for mastery-based, credit-based learning.
How does that, and can you give us some,
Sure.
insight on the mastery /
Yeah.
proficiency?
So the mastery-based learning work group is, it is a move right now. If you would like, I can do a whole presentation and I can invite Alyssa to find out more about it. We have actually been asked if there was money to look at being a mastery-based, look at having a program. Grits would be a great example of mastery-based learning in that students would be expected to do performance-based, and then out of that, they would receive a credit. Now, just because you are putting this into our policy doesn't mean that the programs exist at this time. There would be quite a bit of work around that. But this has been an equity push from the state of Washington to say that there are certain populations and certain students that learn in a variety of different ways, and that you can give credit, not just in time-based, but in experience-based. So I will give an example. Eatonville has a program by which the students build a canoe, they learn the history, they go on a trip, and then when they complete those things, they get credit that translates back into their graduation requirement. So they might get a history credit and a science credit, so it's more of an integrated model, but they're currently right now, we have very few. I believe we already passed the language. So a good example of the language is if you can go in and you can master the test, you speak fluent Spanish, you can master that, so then you get a world language credit.
And the foreign language is the only one that has existed up to this point. Correct. The state has recognized.
That is correct.
So I just have some ensure cultural responsiveness and equity and awarding mastery-based credits. So does that mean there's a scale? Can you help me learn or understand how we can do that?
Right. So currently right now, the policy needs to go into place and then the procedures will be built around that. Okay. So it is a requirement now from the state Board of Education that we look at other options for students to get credits. You're asking me about something specific. We don't have that here in the district yet.
So I understand the idea of mastery, and I can wrap my brain around that. What I'm wanting to know is how do we then, as these subgroups, how do we address each of them individually? Do we just have separate mastery? It says ensure cultural responsiveness and equity in awarding mastery-based credit. So then do we have different requirements for different subgroups, or do we have a mastery-based program and just make sure we're supporting each subgroup so that they can, do you understand what I'm saying?
So what we wouldn't do is say, if you're in this group, then this is what you do for credit, but you're in this group, and this is what you do for credit.
Right, that's what I'm asking.
No.
Okay, all right.
No. What it's saying is that the program would be X. Now, there might be some flexibility. So like the School of Auntie in Olympia has a variety of, like, you have your independent and you work with your I want to say professors, your teachers around what your independent program is, and then they match the credit according to your independent program. That's a very innovative, this is an attempt to be more innovative and inclusive of historically underrepresented groups, for example, tribal or a variety of different other groups. So that's why that language is in there. It's not saying if you're this group, then this is.
So we can have one mastery program that has a lens for all equity with all groups. We don't have to design.
That is correct.
Then another question, will this also support Running Start students? Because in the past, it's been very difficult for Running Start students to show, even though they can master things to get credit, it's been very cumbersome and I think inequitable as far as making sure that the credit's transferred. So are they going to be assisted in this?
I can't answer that specifically the way that you're asking it. What I can say is that on the mastery-based work group that actually I testified this week to see if they would re-up it for another year, because it does need to be fleshed out, the work group. But there is higher education. I also, WSU provost, or chancellor, I don't know the correct terminology, but Paul Petrie and I both testified along with the students about the need for opening up. So this is pretty innovative to have in language so far, and it isn't being actualized yet. This is like setting the ground, and this will be work that will be done over time.
But Kristen, you could also, as you had mentioned, we can add that later on into our procedure, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
But the question that you're asking about Running Start, because Running Start is college credits, and this is talking about high school credits, so I don't know the answer. But those are very easy things that we could find out the answer, and if you are more interested in the mastery-based learning, I know the people, and I could invite them if you wanted a short presentation with Alyssa and Randy Spalding from
I would
the
like
State Board of Ed.
I agree with mastery based, but I also think in order to be truly equitable, students who are taking college credits need to be able to say, just because the teacher in high school doesn't necessarily align, that there is some flexibility in the mastery.
Absolutely.
So I think
This is a doorway. It was interesting. They did kind of reach out to me and say, you would be a great district. We would really, think that. So I think they might be thrilled to have the opportunity to come and talk about that. It would be great.
Concur. Okay, anything else about 1 through 9? Okay, then let's talk about number 10, data sharing. That, I have some questions about that.
Okay, let me flip to that one.
You'll probably ask me a question.
Data sharing with local tribe? Yeah.
That, is there like opt-in, opt-out, or the way that's written, it looks like it could be a blank check
And
for,
parental consent,
Yeah.
that was my question.
Yeah.
Is there parental consent for that?
or is that just a blank check for tribes to harvest the data of students?
Don't know if I know the answer on that. Kim, do you happen to know the answer on that?
I'm sorry, I don't actually. I know that Dorothy has to actually receive parental consent. But what I don't know is if this pertains only to her students or anyone that cared to self-identify as having Native American heritage.
It looks specifically that tribes need access to the educational records of Native students.
Right.
It's just incredibly vague, and I want some, like some opt-in, some opt-out, some consent language there.
I think we need to be careful about parental consent. That would be it's not stipulated in there, and I want to know, because I just want to know as a parent.
Yeah.
Right. If somebody's getting my child's information, and if it's a tribe and you're part of the tribe, that's great.
Yeah.
You should have the opportunity to know.
No, I don't want to give our kid info to anybody.
Right.
Their family doesn't
Without
want to have it, so.
parents' consent. I agree. Can I make a motion that we set this aside until we have clarification, item number 10?
You can make a motion by anything you want
Thank
to.
you. I move that we set
So
number 10.
wait, may I just clarify?
Yeah.
So the question around the data sharing is, do the parents have the ability and right to opt in, or does this get a blank check?
Yeah.
If you identify as tribal, Native American, then does that just give the tribe, any tribe, the right to your own child?
Information.
It looks like the way it's written now, that's the way I read
It's
it,
just,
yeah.
anybody can reach, any tribal agency can reach in and grab your child information, which I think.
I agree that we need to table it, Rhonda, but I believe we can also put it in our procedure that we would say that it would require a parent consent. So that's where that procedure comes in, is that we can require that. It might be vague in the policy, but we can actually, as a school board, add that consent.
It's kind of a big thing to leave out of the actual policy.
Yeah, I'd like it to say
So
something.
I might recommend then that we contact our
Legal counsel.
legal
Yeah.
counsel and
Yeah.
then get legal.
Because we've had other issues where we really stood on the side of parental consent and made sure that it was in the policy.
Yeah.
And so I think this is another one of those times, so.
Concur.
Okay.
Okay, so any discussion, anything else on that before we move on? Okay. So any discussion about bid requirements? Nothing for me. Okay, and anything on electronic signatures? My only problem with that was there's a line in there that says,
There's this typo.
and it's not a typo, it's,
There's a typo in the. bid,
no, there's, yeah, I've got a list of those I'm gonna forward tomorrow. But,
Okay, good.
it just looks dumb. That the policy can be modified, rescinded, or replaced at any time by the superintendent, which is not how policy works. So we need to strike that, in my opinion. So Creston can't. go
Well,
rogue
doggone
on
it, I was
I
gonna
know.
just
I
do
see, you know,
that.
you tried to sneak that in there.
I know, well, I was excited about it. What you could do then is accept it with the
Sure.
amendment of just taking that out.
We can do that. Anything else in that?
Was this
Might
was
just be the
suggested?
persnickety.
Oh,
Yeah, this is all Wasta suggested, yeah.
That was Wasta, right?
Oh, no, it was not.
No, it's Wasta.
I'm thinking this came
No,
from
no,
Wasta.
let's blame Wasta.
Okay. Now, we got some Robert's Rules of Orders to do here. So I need a motion by you to rescind your prior motion.
Yes, I rescind my prior motion to approve items 1 through 12.
All right. Is there a second? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Okay. So now I would consider it, I know. Oh wait, I'm only halfway done now. The work is good. So I would consider a motion to approve WASDA policy changes 1 through 9 and 11 as presented. Number 12 with the striking of the superintendent's ability to modify and excluding number 10.
So moved.
Second. If that makes any sense to you, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, please signify by saying no. Okay. Creston, it's up to you and your people to make sense of that.
Hey, I'm just very impressed. That was a nice move. Very impressive.
Okay, superintendent comments.
All right, so this evening I invited all the principals, and there's 5. So they each get 2 minutes to update you. Yeah, I know. You can even start the timer if you'd like. So let's go ahead and start with Allison, are you on?
Yes, I am. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Allison.
So Lynn, Tim, and I did a little something. So we're going to multiply our 2 by 3 and get 6 minutes. So we'll go speed through this. We do have a short little presentation, and the only reason we wanted to do this is just because we have had kids in the building, and we thought it warranted a little more updating than what you would imagine. So I'm going to present my screen, and we'll just scroll through a few slides, and then if you have questions, we can certainly answer those at the end.
Very good.
All right, so we're just going to start off by Lynn sharing a little bit about the schedule. I'll share about the safety enhancements, and then we'll end with Tim giving an update on food service and recess. So take it away, Lynn.
All right, so Allison, would you go ahead and go to, well, let's see, I guess we could, which one are you on?
I'm on the actual schedule, or the talking points to the schedule, if that's
Okay,
what you
so you're on slide 4?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. So we have all of our students back who are enrolled, and we have them broken into 2 groups. Group A attends Monday and Tuesday. Group B attends Thursday and Friday. We kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about what the teachers are doing, so we can explain how their time is taken up. Before school teacher time is for planning. We we use there's a 30-30 time or a 30-minute time at the beginning of the day and a 30-minute time at the end of the day. So Allison, would you show slide number 5?
Absolutely. Yep, there you go.
So the teachers are at school at 7:30 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. From 7:30 to 8 o'clock is their 30-minute time for, it's just a time that we have to appropriate to them. They then have their planning from 8 o'clock to 8:40. They have a 10-minute break from 8:40 to 8:50, and then they begin screening students to come into the building at 8:50. School starts at 9 o'clock, and we dismiss at 2:30. We do not have any specialist time. So when you look at that schedule right there, you'll see that there is no built-in time for music, art, PE, or anything like that. We have used our specialist certificated teachers to actually take over classrooms so that they can alleviate the class size numbers to be at 15. Wednesdays we use for teacher prep. We do grade level PLCs, we do cross-district PLCs, and the students are responsible for doing a counselor lesson. During those days, we also have a 30-minute lunch in the classroom, and teachers have used that 30-minute lunch. They keep their doors open to have that ventilation going on. They use tables outside the classroom door. They are shielded with not only their mask, but they wear a shield. They have the option of using gloves if they have to go close to students, and especially for those little ones, if they have to help them open packages of things that are in their lunches, they have that option to wear the extra safety protection. We have a 30-minute recess, and that is when the teachers have their lunch break. We have a 10-minute break in the afternoon when the students do a program called Power Up, which is a program where they are keeping track of the laps that they do, and we give little gifts, tokens for prizes, or tokens, excuse me, for the miles that they do on their laps. And then after all that is filled into a master schedule, then the rest of the day is geared and reserved for instructional time. So Allison, if you'll switch to number 6.
Absolutely.
This just shows a quick few pictures of students being dropped off and how the screening process goes outside classroom doors. And Allison can extend the information on that in the safety enhancements that she's going to talk about.
All right, thank you, Lynn. So transitioning to some of the things that we have in place, as you're well aware, I know you recently heard from our IPAC consultants and John and Heidi earlier on, but I just want to commend them for really, John in particular, for supplying all the schools with a stockpile of PPE. So this is just a little look at some of the things that we have here available to staff. So we have gowns, we have wipes that 6th grade and up may utilize. Teachers can use them. A really nice stockpile of a variety of masks, student shields, and those are coming in really handy when, especially at the primary level, when teachers are asking their students to read out loud to them, and they're helping with that dictation to kind of see how things are happening with their mouth. So that's really critical in the early grades. And then here you can see just a whole variety of different PPE that we have available to us in our district. Mr. Moore here is fashioning the ever so popular Badger Shield. So this one is really popular among some teachers, some don't like it, but kind of cool. And then we just wanted to show off that students are really doing a nice job of wearing their masks. This is something that you'll see at all the schools, this little station. You probably are aware of this. You've probably done it yourself, signing in. We're taking visitor temperatures too now if they're in the building for the day. And then we have masks on hand for people who may need them. All the schools are putting up signage just to encourage social distancing. Our transportation is looking a lot different too. So we just wanted to highlight and commend our bus drivers for their work in transporting the students and keeping them socially distanced on the bus. In addition to that, at all 3 elementary schools, if you've walked the campuses lately, you probably have seen little critters spray painted outside, and that's just to show students where they should stand. And then inside the buildings, you'll see adhesive stickers on the floors to show students where to stand. And then as Lynn mentioned, students are participating in a daily health screening. We did revise the temperature. Now students stay seated in their classroom for approximately 5 minutes before their temperature gets taken. And then just off to the right-hand side here, this picture is just a little station in one of the classrooms that shows it's a checklist of things for the daily screening. The temperature thermometer there is on the left, and then just extra masks that are available to students and to staff. This is a picture during the IPAC tour where we opened up the box to one of the new air purifiers, and this is Angie there to the left. I believe she spoke to you at a recent work study session. And so that air purifier is in our isolation room, and we do have them throughout the district. And they're really nice quality air purifiers, and we have extra filters on hand in our supply area with our PPE. We also have sectioned off every other stall in all the restrooms district-wide, and just use caution tape to close down those as well. Now at our restrooms, at the gang sinks, we only allow 1 student at a time. And then that stools for our preschool, we used to have 2 or 3 stools there, but it helped them reach the sink for hand washing. But now we're just limited that to the 1 child at a time. Just last week, we did get new hand sanitizing stations mounted in the hallways all throughout the school buildings. And then water fountain stations are closed, but the water bottle fillers are still open, so students can utilize their own bottles and refill those. This is just showing a classroom of how we're still splitting the A and the B kiddos, and they're socially distancing in the classroom as well. And I just wanted to show a picture of how teachers are. The picture on the right is a picture of kindergarten utilizing a rope to understand how to stay 6 feet apart if it's stretched out all the way. And then there on the left, as you can see, the students in the upper grades truly do understand now how to stay 6 feet apart from each other when they're walking in lines. That took some practice, but they've got it. And definite increase in hand washing. Every classroom, every day, lots of hand washing. And then I'll conclude here just with commending Creston for her advocacy in getting our district PCR tests for our staff. So staff members are able to take an actual PCR test and get shipped and texted their results every week, and that's really nice to have here. And then just a final note that our health rooms are separate from our isolation rooms. So if a student does need a bandage or something gets banged up on the playground from recess, they wouldn't be going in the room where we would put a suspected COVID case. All right, let's turn it over to Tim for recess.
So as you can imagine, recess presents a unique challenge in the COVID era. What we have done is just adhere as closely as possible to the recommendations that we get from Pierce County Health Department, from the IPAC consultants, to still be able to have recess for kids, but to do it in the safest way possible. So at all 3 elementary sites, we have the playground divided into zones, and students literally can see that the zones are they're color coded, they're clearly earmarked. And on all of our playgrounds, they're zoned into 3 or 4 different zones. Students wear masks the entire time that they are out at recess for the most part. So you see in this slide, there's just a picture that the zones themselves are sort of made obvious by the toys that we have on the playgrounds at each of our sites. And so kids know that they go out to a specific zone each day of the week as they go out to recess. Again, following the advice of the health department and the IPAC consultants, we have cohorts of kids at recess. So it is the same kids by grade level that are at recess each day. And a newer development is that we have a zone that specifically is a mask breaking area where kids can go and they can briefly remove their mask and at least have a short break of being able to wear the mask outside. Otherwise, they are literally wearing their mask even when they're outside at recess. And that's the guidance that we got, especially from the IPAC consultants. In terms of, that's just a picture that Allison's showing you of just one of the zones. Again, that's just a mask-free area where kids can go and take a brief break. In terms of food service, again, food service looks similar at all 3 sites. When students arrive at school, they can pick up a brown bag breakfast. So they literally just walk up to the area of the cafeteria. The food service staff hands them the bag. They take it to their classroom, and then they eat the food in their classroom. And lunch is super unique. It is a delivery to the classroom in containers that are, just like the styrofoam that you can see that the kids are eating out of there. So it's just an easily disposable container that's delivered directly to the classroom. And then that minimizes cohorts mixing and kids having to walk down the hallway, for an example, which would expose people more than what is deemed necessary at this time.
Okay, any questions for us that we can answer?
Anybody? No, nothing for us. Thank you.
do. Are those warm meals that they're getting lunchtime? That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so cool. And then Allison, for the isolation and versus the health room, is that the students don't know where the isolation room is, right? So that they can't identify if a student or their
correct.
classmate. Okay, all right.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all.
You're welcome.
And so who's up next, Chris?
Okay, it should be Jana,
Jana?
middle school.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, I feel very unprepared. I do not have a fancy slideshow for you.
Oh.
So I apologize. But I have shared with you all of the communication that I have sent home with to parents and to students. So if you would like to have that, I can send it to you again. I will actually be sending more of it out on Friday. I released a video this evening right before the board meeting that went out to students and families with all of this information as well. So hybrid learning for the middle school starts on Monday, and we are dividing our students into A group on Monday, Tuesday, and B group on Thursday, Friday. And students will come from 8:50 till 2:30. And they will attend all 6 classes like a normal school day. And so we'll be checking, doing our wellness check and temp checks into first period. We've extended the time for first period a little bit longer to allow for that. And for teachers to make announcements and do those types of things as well. So on the days that students are not in person, they'll be doing asynchronous distance learning through the Google Classrooms. Teachers will be posting lessons and activities and projects and things for them to do each day that they're out of school. And then the next group will show up on Thursday and Friday. And so we're really excited for next week to start. Most of our procedures are the same as the elementaries concerning health room and isolation room and sanitation and all of those types of things because those are standardized across the district. One of the things that's different at the middle school is that we will not be passing in the hallways. Our hallways are pretty narrow. And so we'll actually be passing outside using the exterior doors to the classrooms for exit and entry. And students will not be using lockers. We will not be using the locker rooms, just so that we can ensure the social distancing. So that's one of the big differences that kids are going to encounter when they come to school next week. So we'll be eating breakfast in the classrooms. We do have enough space in the commons to space kids out 6 feet apart. So we've added a third lunch in order to allow students to eat lunch in the commons.
All right, very good. Any questions for Jana in the middle school. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Jana.
Ready.
Thank you.
All right, on to Amy.
Okay, well, hi, you guys. So our schedule at the high school is pretty different than everybody else's. And I'm actually going to share my screen. I know some of you I get to have as parents again. You were my Warehouser parents and now you're high school parents. So that's kind of fun. But,
Coming around.
Coming around.
yeah. Okay. So I also was really stressing out about the 2 minutes and talking really fast, but I'm glad that elementary already totally went over their time. So I don't have to feel guilty if it takes me like 3 or 4 minutes. So.
But you can still feel guilty. It's okay.
No, it's okay. I'll let myself off the hook. So, okay. So here is what we did with our schedule is, so high school's in a different, we're kind of in a different boat in the sense that, there's different metrics with the State Department of Health on the decision tree. There's just a lot of additional concerns around high school students just because they're closer to adulthood. And so the way the virus kind of goes, it's a little bit different with them. And so we were trying to be really mindful of that as we were building our plan. And also another thing that was important to us is recognizing that we have a lot of students that from the academic standpoint are doing really well with distance learning. They are getting a lot out of the instruction without the distractions in class. Having everything available on Google Classroom has really worked for them. And the other part of that too is just trying to make sure that we have contact with students as many days a week as possible. So, trying to get away from where we would have these big gaps where we wouldn't see them. So we actually came up with a schedule that allows us to maintain our distance learning in the morning and add in-person learning in the afternoon. And so you guys can see there, the purple is the A and B groups combined. That's everybody online in the morning. That's essentially what we've been doing all school year so far already. And then what's added to that is in the afternoon, kids will come. So the blue and the purple are the two different groups. We divided them A and B by alphabet, just like the middle school did. And so if you're an A student, you will come in person in the afternoon on Monday and Thursday, and B students will come Tuesday and Friday in the afternoons. So we recognize that some kids are reliant on school district transportation. And so I was just looking tonight before the board meeting, we have about 300 surveys back. We put a survey out to families. So those students that need to rely on district transportation to get to school, we have a place for them to work during the morning. And we actually are running right now about 25 students every day in our commons that are actually at the high school during distance learning. And so we would just expand that to include all those kids. Actually, right now, it looks like the total is about 20% of our student population. So we might have as many as about 50 kids, that, assuming that extrapolates out to the 200 kids that haven't responded yet. So I think we're happy to have an additional class period. It ends up, instead of being 2 class periods a week, it ends up being 3. They're a little shorter than our traditional 55 minutes, but it does give that extra point of contact with students and teachers, which is really important to us too. So in terms of all the COVID mitigation things, I think the only thing that's kind of different for us compared to what you've already heard is we do have nice wide hallways. That's one of the nice things about having an old school. And so we are going to have one-way traffic in our hallways. We actually ordered a certain kind of tape that John said was good to use. So but down the middle of the hallways, and we hope that they can take their driving skills and apply them to walking in the hallways too. So we're going to have our stairways directionally indicated too. So we'll just have one staircase that's up only, one staircase that's down only. Just trying to prevent kind of that face-to-face crowding. So with our kids only going to 3 classes in person, a real benefit to that for us is that really only creates 2 5-minute passing periods that kids are kind of dealing with each day that they're on campus. And we have it's all hypothetical. We haven't had kids in person yet, but we anticipate that that's going to be the time when it's going to be the most difficult to keep them socially distant, is because they're just not paying attention. They're just in the habit of doing certain things. So we'll just work on keeping them moving and getting them to class. And so I feel like I might have missed some things, but I was trying to talk fast. So do you have any questions?
Amy and Jana, can you just talk briefly about your trip to White River?
Yeah.
We visited White River last Thursday. I took a team of teachers to Glacier Middle School, and Amy had some folks visit with her to White River High School. We watched their entry procedures. We watched kids pass in the hall, talked with the administrators there, talked with some district office staff. We got some great ideas and were able to talk with staff about, at least at the middle school, we were able to talk with staff about those ideas today, and those will be in place on Monday.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only real, we kind of had gone into this whole thing anticipating that teachers would screen students when they arrived to class in the morning or in the afternoon, I guess. And after seeing how things went at White River, we changed our mind on that. So we're going to go ahead and just screen them as they come in. And that way they're all screened and they'll get a little stamp. We ordered different color EC stamps that will stamp on them to indicate that they've been screened. So then teachers, each class period will just be able to verify that students have been screened for the day. So we don't have to worry about kids showing up late or parking and just walking in or, things like that. Things that sometimes happen. So, I mean, it was really great. I will tell you, it was just amazing because it just felt really normal. And an interesting thing that we'll just have to wait and see. So the assistant principal at White River High School said that on an average day for them, they have about 16 incidents of student discipline. And they've had one the whole time that they've been back in person. So I don't know what it is about maybe just the more space that kids have. Maybe they're just on their best behavior because they're so happy to be back, and maybe it's a honeymoon that will wear off. But it was just really, really good to see the kids being part of the solution. They want to be in school and they want to be safe in school and keep their teachers healthy. And so that was really positive.
Excellent.
So I just had a question, and I couldn't see your chart there. Maybe tomorrow I can.
Sorry, Paulette.
But the kids are coming in the afternoon?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So I'm just going to be totally honest with you. When I heard about your schedule, it made absolutely no sense to me.
Me too.
And I thought, this is a real big problem for families. And so now after listening to your presentation, I think I have a better understanding. But what I'm leaving here thinking is a lot of other people probably don't. What I loved is that your biggest concern, your reason that you have the kids virtual half the day is so that every day a teacher is interacting with those students. So they're not going home and doing asynchronous. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I think that that's fabulous. I think that's great. Then and I think it's also going to be tricky for families. I think more kids probably use transportation, or at least they used to. Maybe a lot of them are driving. And that'll be something families can get used to. But my question about choosing the afternoon, is that to accommodate sports? Did you have them in person in the afternoon to accommodate sports, or was there a reason that you
did afternoon rather than morning?
Yeah, did afternoon rather than morning, because it seems like
it wasn't at all to accommodate sports. It was really just to try to maintain the consistency of the morning. So we've got kids kind of in a good routine with an entire semester under their belt, and we wanted to just go ahead and maintain that.
Okay.
So
I'm so curious to see how it works, because in my head I'm going, you're gonna have a hard time getting the teenagers there in the afternoon. However,
yeah, we'll see.
I want to be there, so I think that it's probably going to be a great success. And I want to thank you for explaining that, because it didn't make sense to me. But after listening and seeing how you really were prioritizing the students and that constant interaction, I think that's really important. And I hope that we can get that message out to other parents.
But we do want to make that clear that students can still ride the bus, and if they ride the bus, there is a place for them. Or if the parents have to drop them off, there is a place for them.
What do you mean there's a place for them?
They can do their virtual remote learning at school.
So they do virtual remote as well as go to school.
Yes.
Yes, every day there's
Every day.
3 periods online, 3 periods in person.
Yeah, so Paulette, so on Mondays and Tuesdays, we do periods 1 through 3. So the teachers have those 2 days in a row with those classes. And then Thursday and Friday are periods 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
And so what it would look like, so if I'm Hannah Sturdivant,
I would be online Monday morning, and then I would have time in the afternoon to do asynchronous work, the regular work that they've been doing all year. And then on Tuesday, I'd do my online classes in the morning and then go to school in the afternoon and go to class first, second, third period. Then Wednesday's off, and then the same thing for Thursday, Friday, but 4, 5, 6.
So they would do in the morning, they do virtual.
Yep.
In the afternoon, they'd be in class 1 through 3, Monday and Tuesday, and Thursday and Friday, 4 through 6.
Yeah, it'd be Monday or Tuesday in the afternoon and Thursday or Friday, but it's every day in the morning. So we're
doing the virtual
online. We're just adding on in person.
They can do the virtual, Amy, in school as well if they want to.
Yeah, we put out the transportation survey. So for families that, that they need to have the bus, or they have, they have to get dropped off in the morning for parent work schedule or whatever. So.
And you said that they're all placed in the commons area. Is there like a maximum number of people
we've been using the commons, and we will make a plan based on how many students we actually have respond. So right now it's a total of 62 students that said they would need to be on campus in the mornings. And so, how that falls out with A groups and B groups, we'll just have to see. So, but that's really not a lot more than what we have right now. And we are using the commons for that. So.
Okay, but is that within the guidelines of Department of Health?
Yeah, John Fisher, before we even moved, because we've been doing that for a long time with our students that are farthest from educational justice. They meet certain criterion. And so John's already gotten approval from Pierce County with all that stuff. So, and believe me, if you walk into the commons, you'll be really, really confident there's a lot of air exchange, because it's like 50 degrees in there. It's cold.
Oh, that's right. Do you have to open the doors?
No, we don't need to. There's just enough fresh air already coming in. So.
Amy, this is Lynn.
Yes.
A question for you, and I see that there's a question in the chat too. But for my question first is, when a student walks into the classroom, how do they know for sure that the student who sat in the desk before them did clean it with the wipe? Will they be allowed to walk in the classroom and grab a wipe and clean it themselves just to ensure that? Or is the teacher making sure that it's done before a student leaves the classroom?
The teacher's going to make sure that it's done before the student leaves. The only reason we had planned to have them wipe down the desks when they entered the classroom, but there's a 1-minute wet time on that Oxivir. And so we were just trying to envision students just kind of awkwardly standing around, not being able to sit at their desk or their chair while that dries. So
that makes sense. Okay, thank you for that. And did you see the question in the chat about lunch? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways kids can have lunch. So they can take grab and go and eat it at home whenever they feel like it before they come to school or whatever. Or they can, if they're at school all day, they can, they'll just eat at school. And if they're driving in the afternoon, they can come early and get their food and eat, have lunch beforehand. So we are not doing lunch in the classrooms. We're actually going to, we're not really promoting eating in the classrooms. We would prefer that they didn't. So we'll see if the teachers, we've kind of left that decision to individual teachers with the understanding that they will be really explicit with students what their expectations are and model what their expectations are. So.
Amy, that was my question. When you have kids that are coming to school and kids that are in school already and grabbing lunch, do you anticipate having enough room for them to eat in the commons, or where are you asking them to eat lunch?
So if a kid arrives at school, like one of the things we've talked about is that they can eat in their cars, they can eat outside. I mean, we have kids that we have been really, really rigid in the past about, where kids can and cannot be at lunch. And we can't be that rigid anymore. So we just don't have enough space. I mean, if we had all 500 kids trying to eat lunch at school, even in 2 lunches, we just don't have the space for them. So we've got the tents ordered. We've got the tables outside in the breezeway, which lots of kids spend time out there. We will allow students if they've driven in the afternoon, if they want to come in and pick up their lunch and then return to their car and eat in their car, they're able to do that. And then of course, obviously the commons. So, and depending on numbers too, because we always have the library open during lunch. We can open that up too if we actually have a couple of other spaces that we have as backup plans too. So it's until we kind of get rolling and see what the flow is going to be with the number of students, it's hard to know. So
Amy, if I could say, it sounds like there's a lot of questions. I know that the board is absorbing the information. So it sounds, will you have a question and answer for any parents at a later time? I mean, it sounds like you will want to field questions. I'm asking that because the IPAC consultants will be presenting on Monday evening around the science and around for families. So I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, we hadn't really planned to do a Q&A for families. People have been calling in with questions as they've had them. So I don't know. I'm just not so sure how it would go. I don't know. So I hadn't really planned on doing that specifically.
Well, so we need to talk offline because I think the more communication and the more clear it is and people having opportunities to ask questions, that would be good. But this wouldn't be for that tonight.
Okay. And can I give an update on graduation while I have everyone here?
Sure. Yeah.
So we have been in the process over the last couple of weeks of making a switch in our graduation plan. So as much as it was just delightful to graduate in the field last year, we would prefer to not do that. And, we know that there's a lot of challenges with an indoor facility. So we've been in contact with the Puyallup Fair, which is where, Puyallup and a lot of the other local districts graduate. And they've been absolutely fantastic to work with. So we have 2 dates that we're working on with them, and working with my buddies over there at Franklin Pierce School District to see if we can coordinate with them so that we get a better date than the one that we have been offered. So we will have an updated date for graduation. The nice thing is that what they've told us right now is that they can accommodate 1,000. That they would give us 1,000 tickets. So, well, I don't know if it's about, that would include graduates. So we would have plenty of space for our graduates to be socially distant and families to be socially distant too. So that would be a really, really big positive thing for us. So I'll keep you guys posted as soon as we get the updated date and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Good job. 2 minutes right there. Good job, Amy.
Yeah, exactly. Right on the money, 2 minutes.
Right on. Thank you. Preston, finish off your comment time.
Well, I just want to thank
2 minutes.
I want to thank you for knowing the administrators. I know that there are many questions. This is really, really hard work. There are a lot of safety measures that have gone through. I did have an opportunity to meet with Dr. Chen. I have met with Dr. Chen multiple times, but he did meet with the union representation today, and they had an opportunity to talk with him. The 14-day average right now is 336.4 per 100,000. It's under 350, which is awesome. That's 14 days, and the daily average is 260.7. So I guess as we sign off, I just want to thank our community for keeping masked, social distancing, getting those COVID numbers down so that we can get students back in school. We're doing everything that we can to be safe and for our students and our staff. So thank you for your support. This has been really, really hard work. And this is a national conversation, but I feel like we have just a really good team. We have wonderful PSE and EEA staff and union representation, and our athletics. We didn't talk about athletics, but athletics start next week officially in the new season. And so we have kids that are here every day. It's really, really a joy to see them. So with that, thank you, administrators. You can sign off if you need to. Thanks for coming. You don't do well at time. But that's okay.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you,
With that,
everybody.
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, board comments. I saw Angelina on there. Angelina, you want anything to, or have anything to say tonight?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah.
What's that?
Should we congratulate you?
Well, I think she's on.
Oh. Okay.
Kalina, you want to say something real quick while we wait?
Yes, unfortunately, I cannot turn my camera on as it is broken as of right now. But so considering all this and going back to school, I've gotten, and Angie and I have gotten a lot of feedback from students and their point of views on this. And first of all, I wanted to say that in the high school events plan and the administrators about that they enforce within school, I believe it is really good, and the procedures within the class sound very safe, and that I think the students that do attend will be very satisfied and feel safe. But there are still students who do not feel that in-school attendance should be mandatory, which is a topic that has been brought up a lot, from many students, including myself. And though I know that is very hard for the administrators, and we recognize that it's amazing that what you guys are doing and getting everything back to school, like it is incredibly hard to please everyone. And everything that you have been doing has been amazing, but there's just been some, it's kind of like 50-50 between the students and how they feel about, at least high schoolers, about going back to school and having that be mandatory or going to the SVL program. But yes.
Yeah. Well, and nobody's required to come to school, Kalina. Anybody can opt out and go full online. So if that's important to somebody, they have that option.
All right, that's I guess here from the students, I meant like as in either they would have to do the SVL program or the EOA, or they would have to be in school. So that was kind of their argument, which I was a part of the group who was seeing like what the students were hearing and what they felt about it. But yeah, that's just what I have to say on that. Sorry.
No, that's what you're on our board for, Kalina, so we can hear what students are saying and thinking. That's really important to what's happening. So thank you for letting us know. Don't ever feel bad about telling us what you're hearing and thinking. All right, Princess Angelina.
Yes, just to kind of follow up on that. Yeah, it's just a difficult decision for most students, I think, like having to choose between the online learning program and then going to school with everybody's concerns. And I think that's just what we wanted to vocalize. It's just a difficult decision, and that's kind of what our main point was. Because most people don't want to do the full online program because they want to stay in Eatonville, right? Like they love the connections that they do have with our teachers, even if it is remote and everything. But like Kalina said, actually hearing the full plans and everything and all the work that the principals and administrations and all the teachers have done, it is a really good plan. And I hope it's very successful and everything. And I do have high hopes.
Very good. And I personally want all the kids to know that we're making this as safe as we can, and it's safe enough. I'm sending my own children in there with you. So I mean, this is important to all of us. So nobody's cutting any corners, and we're making this as good as we can. So, but again, I appreciate your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody?
Congratulations, Angelina, on being Eatonville's Daffodil Princess. That's very
Good night.